So I just want to take some time this morning just to thank the ministry staff for allowing me to address the congregation and to share my conversion story with you today. I want to specifically thank Dave Sue for being a friend and a guide during dark times of my life. As much as I would like to tell you that I'm a self-made man and that everything good in my life is a result of all my efforts, that could not be further from the truth. The truth that anything good in my life is a result of God's grace in my life. Everything that I am is a result of God working in and through me. This is less a story of me looking for God as much as it is God's relentless pursuit of me, and for that I'm extremely grateful. I will attempt to condense 30 years of my love story with God in just 5 minutes. I grew up in the 1970s and 80s in a small town in Puerto Rico called Humacao. Looking back at those times, Humacao was your typical Puerto Rican town. Everyone knew each other, was connected to one another in one way or another. Some were connected through school, while others were connected through the town sports leagues. Around the age of 7, I lived across the street from a family with 3 boys. The parents were usually not home, so those brothers spent the days by themselves. Most of the kids from the neighborhood spent a lot of time in their house. One time, as I was hanging out at their house, the oldest boy brought in a VHS video with pornographic content. I remember the first time I laid eyes on pornography. It was both confusing and mesmerizing. It gripped me. For a young boy, coming across such explicit images was life-altering. My innocence would be lost forever. How could I have known the enslaving impact these images would have on my life in the years to come? My high school years would be marked by drugs, alcohol, and sex. At that time, I believed that I was just having fun, living life without a care in the world. From the age of 15 to the age of 22, I cannot recall a time in which I was sober. It would not be until years later that I would be able to recognize and accept and begin to deal with the emotional and spiritual impact that being exposed to sex at such an early age would have on my life. And that what I was doing with drugs, sex, impurity, and alcohol was really masking and medicating all of the emotional pain, shame, and feelings of inadequacy that I had experienced as a young boy. By the age of 21, I was extremely lonely. I was hopeless and weary. I was tired of living. Was this it? Was this all there was to life? The emptiness and hopelessness that I felt at that time seemed unbearable. I had no answers. Towards the end of 1992, I began attending San Antonio College. It was during this time that I began to cry out to God for help. I began to attend different churches around the San Antonio area in the hopes that God could change my life. I began to read the Bible, but it seemed so boring and useless. It didn't seem to have any power at all. And for a moment, I began to lose faith that I could change at all. It seemed that God was reserved for those people without a life. Eventually, I was invited to the San Antonio Church of Christ. I remember walking into the building hungover from the partying the night before. It seemed like everyone was coming in and hugging me and welcoming me. Was this staged? Can people really be this friendly? I hope they don't think I'm going to join them. I remember thinking to myself, I am a Christian already, you know. You see, as a young boy, I had attended church regularly, and I was of the opinion that I was an all-around good guy. After all, I was not stealing or robbing anyone. The reality of it was that I was consumed by my sin, and I was powerless to change it. My life did not reflect the Bible standards, which are the only standards that matter at all. Pete, the minister, preached a message of pure living and commitment to God. There was no middle ground. You could not have your cake and eat it too. Finally, I was being challenged. Finally, someone was telling me the truth, God's truth from the Bible. The truth that I could not be a Christian and continue a lifestyle of sin. That day, 2 guys from the church invited me to study the Bible. They began to challenge my life through the scriptures about holy living. I claimed to be a Christian, but my life was totally consumed with self-gratification. For the first time in my life, the Bible was making sense to me. It was clear as day. I needed to surrender my life to follow Jesus. Even though I was sick of the way I was living, this was a really difficult decision for me. For a while, I backed away from the Bible studies, scared that at the age of 22, I could not be faithful to live in a new life for God. A few weeks later, I knew I had to stop running. I continued with my Bible studies, and as I was counting the cost of being a disciple of Jesus, I remember reading Matthew 11 through 17. Truly I tell you, among those born of women, there has not risen anyone greater than John the Baptist. Yet whoever is least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he. From the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven has been subjected to violence, and violent people have been raiding it. For all the prophets and the law prophesied until John. And if you're willing to accept it, he is the Elijah who was to come. Whoever has ears, let them hear. To what can I compare this generation? They're like children sitting in the marketplaces and calling out to others. We played a pipe for you, and you did not dance. We sang a dirge, and you did not mourn. At that very moment, I decided that I had to trust God and hear what he was telling me. You need to stop running and follow me and become a disciple. I thank God for his patience. On October 28th of 1993, I was baptized to have my sins forgiven and started a new life with God. It has now been 29 and a half years since I became a disciple of Jesus. Philippians 3:12 tells us, brothers and sisters, I do not consider myself yet to have taken hold of it. But one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and straining towards what is ahead, I press on towards the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus. And I wish I could tell you that since that day of my baptism, I've gone from strength to strength, and that my life has been lost and pain-free. That's just not the case. There have been many ups and downs in my journey, but despite my many failures, God has always been faithful to his promises to me, and I'm confident that he will continue to see me through to the end. Thank you.